are live. Hold on. Apologize there. I had my music on loop. And we are live, guys. And it is time for that time of trial where we've gone through an entire trial and we are going to, we have a verdict. Sentencing is going to begin later this afternoon. But we are going to do some analysis, break down some testimony, look back and see, did the jury get it right? Did they get it wrong? Where does everything fall? And my take on this from the beginning, or from this point is, yes, they got it right. Okay, yes, they did. I don't have a problem with the verdict necessarily. However, I think they got it wrong as far as the theory of the case. I think they could have still got here. But I don't think what they said happened, the state that is really clearly what happened. And I think that the evidence proves something else happened. So, we're going to get into some testimony here. We're going to watch from the two co-defendants that testified against Brice Rhodes. We're going to listen to their testimony because it's important to go into that testimony to see that I believe they are more culpable in this than what they say. And I believe the state let them off with way too easy of a sentence, and that is an injustice in this case. They gave away the house to go after what they thought was the bad egg. I think Brice definitely was a part of all of this. I believe he did commit murder. I believe he disposed of bodies. And I think that obviously, now, do I think that, sentence-wise, again, that's going to be up to the jury. But I think he's getting sentenced for two crimes he didn't commit. I think he's going to get sentenced for a crime he did commit, two crimes he did commit. We're going to leave it at that. We're going to get into it. So let's jump here to talk about what we're going to look at here first. So the first one we're going to look at is Ann Juan's testimony. And this is significant because I believe, here's what I believe happened here, guys. This is my theory of the case after reviewing and having sat through the trial and heard all of the testimony, all the forensics, everything. I don't know why the police didn't see this, as a viable theory on the case. But in my opinion, what I believe happened here is I believe this comes down to a discharge it starts out with a discharge of a firearm by a young man or young men that are trying to emulate and live a life that they're really not. They think they're gangsters, right? And Jacory buys a gun. He's one of two guys who testified in this case against him. Jacory and Ann Juan are the two guys that I believe are really, truly responsible for what occurred here. And Jacory buys a gun. They're hanging out. They're hanging out with Maurice. They're hanging out with Maurice's brother and Larry. And they're all hanging out, chilling, and having a good time. And they're driving around. Now, Ann Juan stole a car apparently earlier that day. He stole a truck, but he's driving behind them. They're in the car. They're driving around. I think they're just driving around. And Jacory's got his gun. And I don't know who yelled out the window, but I think that they're flaunting it around. The problem is when you have a handgun, things can happen. And if you don't know what you're doing with that gun, bad things can happen. And in this case, I believe that's exactly what occurred. I think they're, pointing it out the window, doing stupid stuff that 14, 15, and 16-year-olds will do because they don't think of consequences. They don't think of the future. And in this case, they see the guy in the street. They want to scare him. And Jacory points the gun out the window. Somebody says, hey, get out the street. And it discharges. One time. And he shoots him. Now, the reaction is they speed off. Ann Juan speeds off. And when he does, he runs over the guy. Like he said, I felt the bump. Now, what to do in this situation? They are scared to death, right? Now, this is when Brice kicks in because he's there. He's the oldest guy. He's an adult. And he's just like, fall back, chill out, don't talk about it. I think, so I think that you could say at that point, if this had been reported, You've got a situation where Jacory's probably going to be, handled here. Now, in their eyes, they may think, hey, we're going to be handled as an adult. We're at a disadvantage here. No one's going to believe us. But, and I wouldn't trust the Louisville police either, given the history that we all know they have in Breonna Taylor and various different things that have come out about them. But regardless, they decide to cover this thing up. And then Larry and Maurice, being young kids, feeling guilty, feeling upset about the circumstances, they start running their mouth. And because of the relationship that Brice has with their mother, he hears from their mother about this. And as you hear, Jacory says, yeah, Brice told me they're running their mouth. We gotta fall back and separate ourselves from them and figure some things out. And then I think, obviously, Jacory and Anwan are the only ones saying, hey, Brice said we're going to kill him. I don't think that's coming up. I think it's just separate from them. You boys need to keep your mouth shut. Now, fast forward a couple of weeks later, everybody's chilling out. Everybody's having fun. Everybody's kicking it, as they say, right? Party happens. Maurice, Larry, Brice, Jacory, and Anwan show up. They're all now in the same room. We don't know what happens. We just know an altercation between Maurice and Jacory happens, right? That gives us intel and insight into who are they mad at. They're not mad at Brice. They're mad at Jacory. Why are they mad at Jacory? Because Jacory's the dude that was having the gun, was being flagrant with the gun, and it went off. It just makes sense. There's a confrontation. There's a knife that comes out. We know this because that's what everybody says, right? So what we don't know is what happens when the knife comes out. We know Jacory claims, just like he claims in this case in the car, I have a gun, but it ends up in Brice's hands. In this case, he has a knife that ends up in Brice's hands, right? Or Maurice has a knife that ends up in Brice's hand. The weapon always ends up back in Brice's hand. And knife goes in his hand, and it's like, oh my God, they're in a fight, and they end up stabbing each other. So the knife ends up in their hands, right? Or in Maurice's hands. Jacory and him get into an altercation. We know there's heat between them. Why is there heat between them? Because Jacory's the guy that did this thing 2 weeks ago. They fight, and I believe in the altercation, Maurice ends up stabbed and bleeds out on the floor. Now they got a problem, right? Larry is freaking out. So the other people in that room put his ass in the bathroom. Now, this is where truth and lies blend. What happens? There's a discussion. What do we do with Larry? Doesn't make sense that they put Larry and Maurice in there. What are we going to do with them? And we're just going to suddenly kill him. No, there's been a fight. There's a second death now. Maurice got out of hand, got stabbed, is bleeding out on the floor. Once again, they're not going to call the police, right? Because they don't trust the police, because they don't trust that they're going to do the right thing. Into the bathroom goes Larry, where I believe this is where the truth kicks in. They tie him up, and they have to vote what to do. And all of them's like, we got to kill Larry. And then they decide, well, we're all going to, look, here's the deal. Jacory's going to be in it. He's going to do it. And, Jacory's going to be the one that's going to do it. And, so Jacory ends up, in my opinion, what ends up happening here is at that point, Jacory, or all of them, but probably Jacory, I would say, kills. They bring Larry out and they kill Larry. And they do that, everyone. That's the murder everyone participates in. And then in a moment of truthfulness, which is true, they all take part in killing Larry. Larry is the one they all take part in because They all need to be part of this. So now and again, the mindset of these guys is like, this is a pact. If we all stabbed them and we're all guilty, we're not going to run into the problem that we had with Maurice and Larry running their mouth because they felt like, hey, we didn't do anything. Jacory did this. Anwan ran over the guy. We're covering for them. So they do this, and then that's when Brice takes over. And again, like I said, this is the part he's guilty of. He takes it, disposes of the body, throws the bodies away. Anwan and Jacory stay back and begin cleaning up the apartment. And they go on and start covering stuff up, led by Brice. Now, Brice doesn't run his mouth. But guess what? Jacory and Anwan do, because they give them a good deal. They give them a sweetheart deal, and they find their way out of trouble. And that's why even when Jacory shows up, as you're going to see in court, he's struggling with testifying against Brice because he knows he's about to lay an egg on him. He knows this is his responsibility, and and this was Brice helping him out. Brice being a faithful friend, trying to help him and get them out of a situation that started with him. Doesn't mean Brice doesn't deserve to go to prison. It may mean whether or not you believe Brice should go to prison for the rest of his life. He's been a bad actor. He's been psychotic in court at times. He's talked bad to the judges. He's acted out at the jail. Seems to be a young man with a lot of emotional problems. To me, that means get help. But these two young men walking away with nothing and this guy going down is an injustice. Because if this started because of them and they lay this on him, wow. And I think that's why Jacory was so nervous, because he's out in the street still. Remember, he's out in the street still. And Anwan now has just come and snitched out a guy, and he's got to return to prison. Now, he'll get out because he's in there on a burglary stint where he's not going to be in there forever. But not a good look for either of those men, and a sad situation for everybody involved. Now, let's get into the first set of testimony here as we review, and you tell me what you think when you think about the story I just laid out, and say, take the way their story sounds now, which makes no sense at all, and apply what they're saying, what they're hiding, and why they don't want to speak of what exactly occurs, and as truth is finding itself inside of their stories. Their lies, of course, they have to tell a specific story as comes out in the defense's cross-examination of them. We're going to listen to this here. We're going to listen to it a double time. So follow along because we want to get through this. Let's go.
Oh, Your Honor, I'm almost going to call Anwan Carter.
Thank you. Mr. Carter, as best you can, I need you to raise your right hand. Do you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth? Thank you. You can have a seat.
Good afternoon. Can you introduce yourself to the jury?
My name is Anwan Carter.
And how old are you, Anwan?
22.
Where do you live these days?
40 years.
And were you here in town in 2016?
I understand if you could just make this a little bit louder.
And may I approach, Your Honor?
You may. Yeah, you're on the microphone. Thank you, Mr. Cunningham.
So you know what we're here to discuss. Let's talk a little bit about how you know different people here. How do you know Jacory?
Good.
And were you all very close?
Yes.
What sorts of things would you do with Jacory when you were here?
Hang out. We used to go find different females to hang out with.
Anything else you all do together?
We used to
No, sorry, you got to speak up so they can hear you.
hang out. We used to hang out. We used to smoke.
I still can't hear you, and if I can't hear you, no one else can.
We used to play sports. We used to find different females to hook up with.
And did you all grow up together? Did you know him for a long time?
Yes.
And what was his life like?
He was homeless for a while.
And so, as a result of his homelessness, how would he get by? What sorts of things would he do?
We used to steal other people's cars, sleep over at a friend's house.
And what about you? Did you have people live with you in town?
Yes.
So how old were you in 2016?
15.
When you were 15, do you remember how much you weighed or how tall you were?
I was about 120 pounds.
So how did you meet Larry?
At school.
And did you meet Maurice at school as well?
Yes.
And what was your relationship with them?
We're the same sport. We used to go link up with them females. We used to hang out.
Was there anybody in town that you were closer to than the three of them?
Nope.
And do you recognize Mr. Rhodes in the courtroom?
Yes.
And what did he go by as far as you know?
Rambo.
And how did you meet Rambo?
Through Maurice and Larry.
And before we get to
Judge, I'm sorry, I didn't hear that response. Can you repeat that, please?
Through Maurice and Larry.
how long, when we get into May of 2016, how long had you known Rambo for?
A couple weeks, 2-3 weeks, month.
So how many times had you met him before the night of the first shooting?
I don't know. A couple.
So tell the jury, how did the idea of a shooting happen?
We was in my backyard. We was all smoking.
And must slow down, who's we?
Me, Corey, him, Maurice and Larry.
Okay. And what happened?
We was all smoking. He said that somebody got money in their head and we just need a gun.
That's what Brice said.
We need a gun.
And just to spell it out, what does that mean? They have a price on their head and we just need a gun.
Somebody, we get paid to kill somebody. We just need a gun.
Now, at this time, do you know approximately how old Rambo was? Was he older than you guys?
Yeah, he's way older than us.
I'm sorry?
He's way older than us.
Yeah. Was he bigger than you all?
Yes.
Was he the one that was coming up with the ideas?
Yeah.
So how old
Judge,
were
objection, that calls for speculation. I'll allow it. Overruled.
Maurice and Larry then? Do you know?
Like 15, around my age.
So when he first proposes this idea to you all, do you think he was serious?
Mhm.
When did you decide that he was serious?
The night we actually did.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear that. When what?
The night we actually did it.
Thank you.
So how was the gun acquired?
Corey bought the gun.
And when Corey bought the gun, did he know did everybody know what the purpose for the gun was, or was it just a coincidence?
Everybody knew this for.
All right. Had you ever done anything like this before?
Mhm.
Were you nervous about it? What was your feeling about these?
I want to get paid. And then I'm on the fence. It went either way. Either way.
At that time, what did you think would have happened if you would have backed out? Did you think about that? Okay. So
Judge, was there a response to that question?
I did.
You nodded your head no, correct?
so let's get to the day in May you all get together. How did you first get in touch with the group that day?
We had, like me and Corey, we had went over his grandmother's house. While my Maurice and Larry, they was at home. So then when we was going to get dropped back off of Maurice and Larry's house, they was already gone.
Okay. How did you get around in those days?
We used to catch rides, we used to drop stuff, bikes, everything.
And at that time, did Rambo have a car?
Yeah.
Did you have a car?
I have a car of my own.
So who was it that drove you around that night?
Q.
Q. And how do you know Q?
Q's Corey cousin.
So and we're talking about two incidents, so it's easy to get confused. Talking about the first incident, there was a night where you had a truck, the night of the hit, right?
Yes, yeah, I had stole a truck.
And that was that in order to carry this out, or you were just driving a stolen truck?
I just had a stolen truck.
So what was the plan for that night?
That night we were supposed to, like, we was in the backyard again. We all linked up. We went from south to the west.
And how did you all know where to go?
I was following behind.
So you're following a car. What's the car that you're following?
It's like Mazda, I think.
Okay. And who was in that car?
Larry, Maurice, Brice, and Corey.
And where was everybody seated in the car?
So Maurice was driving. Larry in the passenger seat. Brice in behind Maurice, and Corey on the other side.
And who had the gun?
Brice.
And who knew who the target was?
Judge, speculate. Calls for speculation. I'm going to sustain that.
How did you all know where to go?
I was just following behind.
So how long did you all drive around?
30, 45 minutes.
And what did anything eventful happen during that time? So
Besides murder.
besides what?
Besides murder. Besides making a shot.
Okay. So you're driving along. The car in front of you stops around 41st Street.
Something like that.
Stops somewhere in that area.
Judge, may we approach? Sure.
Does the car in front of you stop?
Yeah, stop in the block.
And what happens?
I heard somebody say, get street bitch.
I'm sorry. We gotta have you enunciate clearly so everybody can hear. What was it that happened?
And I heard somebody say, get the street bitch. And the shot went off.
Who was the somebody that said that?
Brice.
Could you see Brice at that time?
I didn't see him, but he was positioned.
Sorry, please repeat.
I didn't see him, but I knew where he was positioned at.
And you heard or saw the gun go off?
I saw it.
Was it inside the car, outside the car?
That's like, his arm was dangling.
And who was he shooting at?
Somebody in the street.
Had you ever seen that person before?
No.
Did you know anything about that person?
No.
Did that person talk or engage anybody?
I know the
Was he facing the car or facing away from the car?
face in the car.
And after the gunshot, what happened?
Shit, we peeled off. Then we got like 5 to 8 houses down. And he shot somebody's house.
So he shot the gun more?
Yeah.
And what did you do?
Just driving.
Just continue to follow? And where did you go that night?
So I went back to Maurice and Larry's house.
Was everybody at Maurice and Larry's?
Mm.
What did you all talk about?
Then?
Do people talk about the shooting?
No.
Why not?
Then how I then how I get my problems out. Then how I express problems.
So you don't talk about stuff like that after it happens?
Just let it go.
Why do you not talk about it?
Just let it go. Just
Did you expect to get something as a result of participating in this?
yeah, I want some money.
And how was that supposed to happen?
So you're supposed to break us off.
And who was supposed to break it off?
Right.
All right. So what you just heard him testify to is they're supposed to break him off. He has no idea about how much money. He has no idea who they're going after. Why would he get any money following in a truck behind them allegedly doing a drive-by? Well, makes no sense. The drive-by makes no sense. It makes sense that they're out driving around, hot-shotting around, doing their thing, and Jacory pulls a gun out and inadvertently shoots somebody in the street. No money ever comes. They never go anywhere to get a payoff. There's no communication with Brice or any evidence whatsoever brought into this case. Now, maybe there is outside evidence that wasn't brought in, but there's no evidence outside of this case that there was ever a hit or ever any communication with anyone doing a hit. There was just none. And, let's get back to the testimony.
How was that going to happen?
We didn't get that far. I just think supposed to break us off. Supposed to break us off.
And when you say break us off, you mean share the money?
Share the money.
Come on.
So did he end up giving anybody any money as a result of that? And how do people feel about that? How did you feel about that?
So I didn't really care.
You didn't care that you didn't get paid?
So I didn't think he got paid. So
Were other people upset about not getting paid?
If you know, you can answer that.
I don't know.
Okay. What did you end up doing with did you do anything with your truck that night?
We burned it.
And why did you burn it?
So he said in case it was on like camera or something.
And who's he?
Right.
And so how did you burn the truck?
We put gas in it. And then on fire.
Were you ever around? There was a phone call that you overheard between the boy's mom and the defendant, right? You remember that?
Yeah.
And you could hear. What could you hear? Where were you?
So it was over.
What was the question?
I'm asking where he was when he overheard this phone call.
Okay, don't say what somebody else said. You want to re-ask the question?
Who was talking on the phone?
So it was Larry Maurice's mom and Brice.
It was who and Brice?
Larry Maurice's mom.
Larry and Maurice's mother? Okay, thank you.
And what was the tone of the conversation?
So again, as you're hearing, everything's coming from Anwan or Jacory, as you're going to hear here. Anwan's the one with the phone. He's got the phone. He's got everything runs through Anwan and Jacory in this case. They're bringing the guns. They're having altercations. They're stealing the property of the victims. And it seems like Brice is in the background because he's around these guys, because he hangs out with these guys, because these guys are friends. And unfortunately for Brice, these guys end up putting it on him.
It was about the shooting.
And when did this conversation happen?
Whenever Maurice had told her about it.
Was she angry?
Objection. Do you want to come up?
All right. So now let's jump forward to the night that you were talking about on the 24th. So on the 21st, late night, how were you traveling around that night? The truck's been burned. How were you traveling around?
Second drop off.
Okay. And so who was dropping you off?
So on the 21st, I don't remember.
Okay. Earlier, when we were confused about which night we were talking about, you said that Q was driving you around.
Yeah.
So that's the night that we're talking about.
Yeah, Q dropped me off.
Okay. So Q is dropping you off. Who's with you?
So me and Corey
And where does Q drop you off?
drops off at his house.
Brice Rhodes' house. Had you been anywhere together before his house?
Yeah.
Where'd you go to?
So when the first one of Maurice Gordon's house, they was already gone.
How did you know they were gone?
So we walked in the house.
And they
was already gone.
They weren't there.
So we called him
Okay. So where'd you guys get dropped off at?
over his house.
Over his house? Had you been to his house before?
Yeah.
Who else? What time of day or night is it?
So it's nighttime.
Nighttime? Who's at the house?
Just what? Larry, Maurice, me, Corey, him, and like 3 other people.
All right. Who are the other folks that are there?
I don't know. Tyron. I don't know.
Had you explained the people that you know that were there? Had you met Tyron before?
That night.
Just then. And there was another person there that you didn't know?
Yeah.
And you don't know who they are now? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah.
Okay. So tell me, what was going on that night?
So we was all smoking, drinking. And then you feel Larry and Maurice got into argument. Not Larry and Maurice, but Larry and Corey got into argument.
Was it common for people to get into arguments when you all were hanging out?
Yeah.
And what happened with this argument?
So Maurice got a knife.
Okay. So Maurice picked up a knife. Did he wave it at Corey?
And I didn't see he waved at him. So he picked it up in an aggressive manner.
And what happened next?
So we took it from him, we smacked him.
You say he, you mean Brice Rhodes?
I took it from him, we smacked him.
How did he take a knife from him?
He wouldn't have the knife anyways.
And what, can you describe the knife?
So it was like a big combat.
All right, now that's important because Corey does the same thing. When he's talking freely without the prosecutor coming in and correcting things, he says he took it from him and smacked him. Meaning he says, okay, he's coming after Corey and he took it from him and smacked him, right? And then the prosecutor jumps in real quick and says, well, who did? Brice, right? Oh, yeah, Brice. Because what I believe happened here, again, is Corey and Maurice get into it. He takes it from him. He smacks him. I mean, Maurice, what? Is coming at him in an aggressive manner? Is he going to give up the knife and then get smacked? I mean, remember, Maurice is allegedly the aggressor here, and then he just, falls apart? Isn't afraid of him anymore? Does that really sound like young 14, 15, 16-year-old guys who are jostling with each other? No way. He doesn't back down. He's got the knife. Now, what does sound like could happen is Maurice and Ja'Cory get into it, and they're tussling, and they get the knife, and they smack him, and he stabs him, and next thing you know, they got their second issue on their hands. Now, what we never heard about, because what was interesting here, we never heard about what happens. He says he shot once. Obviously, that guy gets shot in the street. One shot, that's established. That's in the case. Apparently, there were some other shots discharged. Why were those? He says he shot someone else. Was someone else shot? We didn't hear about that. Maybe there's another victim in the case. But this made no sense at all. I mean, their stories just make no sense. And we don't get to hear a whole lot about it because, they're limited in what they can say by the facts. But allegedly, they're discharging the gun down the street, which is interesting to me. But I believe in this case, there you have it. Does it make sense that we're to believe that Brice comes over, takes this weapon from him, smacks him, and then suddenly Maurice is just like, whatever? No, that doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. What makes sense in this case is that Ja'Cory and Maurice get into an altercation. The reason why, as you will hear when Ja'Cory talks, Ja'Cory was the one who had the knowledge given to him from Brice that Maurice and Larry were running their mouth. Ja'Cory and him are having words about that. Maurice goes after Ja'Cory. Why? They never say why. Why are they getting into a fight? Oh, just stuff, no, they fight all the time. No, there's a reason why. Because Ja'Cory was the guy who caused this whole problem. Not Brice, not Larry, not Anwan, Ja'Cory. But Anwan has Ja'Cory's back because they're cousins and they're tight and they run together. And Anwan gets dragged into this. And the rest happens. Well, not exactly how they say, but there are pieces of it that happen exactly as they say, but they're twisting the truth around just enough so they can maintain their plea deals. Let's keep watching.
And what did Brice do after he took the knife?
He's like, he gonna violate him.
Okay. Brice is going to violate Maurice. And can you explain in general terms, what does it mean to violate somebody? What's that term mean?
What it means, like, if it inflict pain, like, he could just hit him in the chest. He could do the rage things.
It's like a disciplining of the person?
Yeah.
So did that alarm Maurice? How did Maurice respond?
He didn't go with it. I was just gonna be a punch in the chest.
And why would he go along with it?
Just big homie.
I'm sorry?
Just big homie.
So is there a time where you...
I just want to make sure. Did you say because he's big? Yes.
And what he says there is because he's a big homie. So he's saying
So is there
because of Brice's size, he says that's why Maurice is going along with the assault because of how big Brice is. So we're to believe then that Brice, that's why. And that's what he says. Well, why did he go along with it? He's big homie. It's a big homie. He's big. He's intimidating. He's going to go along with it. And do we believe that? I don't believe it. I don't think that Maurice, and it's certainly not Larry at that moment. Now, if two guys are getting in a fight and things happen very quickly and they're fighting, and then one guy ends up stabbed, he's bleeding out. Now everything kind of breaks up. And that explains why Larry ends up in the bathroom, because everybody puts him in there because Larry's freaking out. And the other people in the room got to get him under control, because now this thing has just really broken off to something that could really get out of control and lead them all, in their eyes at least, all to jail. And they're all technically in it together.
Time where people in the house separate from Maurice?
Yeah. We put both of them in the bathroom and took a vote.
Both who?
Larry and Maurice.
They're in the bathroom? And where are you guys?
Living room.
And what happens in the living room?
Took a vote.
What's this vote on?
They should die or not.
If they should die or not? Who's calling the vote?
Brice.
What was your vote?
I'm the one who said no. I just said yeah.
And did your vote win?
Hmm?
Did your vote win? Did you think about what would happen to you if you tried to leave at that point in time?
I had nowhere to go. He lived too far out.
So what happens after the vote's taken? What happens to Maurice?
He put a sock in his mouth, tied his hands behind his back, and put a hat over his head.
And where did he do this?
Living room.
And what happened after that?
He started hitting his chest first.
With an item? With his fist? How was he hitting?
He was hitting the chest with fist first, hit like 3-4 times. And then Tyron passed him the knife. Then he started stabbing him.
So Tyrion handed him the knife. Was he making a noise?
He couldn't get a sock in his mouth.
Was he trying to make noise?
Yeah.
How many times did Brice Rhodes stab him?
So no,
Where did he stab him?
the torso, all up here.
Was he standing up or was he on his knees?
He was on his knees,
And he stabbed him in the chest,
chest, stomach, up in there, in the general area,
in the what area?
in his chest, in the stomach, on his torso.
He stabbed him other places.
I don't know.
How long did this go on for?
Until he stopped breathing.
You have any idea the time?
I don't know.
Was there a lot of blood?
Yeah.
Where was the blood going?
In the carpet and sheets.
Were the sheets set out to catch the blood?
Yeah, sheets was really there to move him.
Who got the sheets?
Brice.
And where did he put them?
So we had dragged Maurice by the door, and then bring Larry out.
Now these guys are your best friends, right?
Yeah.
What's going through your mind?
All right, I want you to understand what he just said there. And see, this is where the nuggets of truth come in. We put Maurice by the door. He goes in the bedroom and gets the sheets, and then they bring Larry out. This is the moment where the truth comes out, because he's telling his lie, which is, oh, he stood there, and he brings him out. And this is the moment where the truth comes out. Right here, at this moment, right here. Because he says, and this is important, we had Maurice by the door. Brice goes in and gets the sheets, sets the sheets up, and brings Larry out. Why is that important? Because the reason why blood gets on the carpet is because of the initial altercation where Maurice bleeds and they don't have control over that. Otherwise, if they were really executing this guy, why is blood getting on the carpet? They would have put sheets down. They get him on his knees. He's right there allegedly on the sheet, and they're stabbing him. And they're in complete control of the flow of blood. And then they roll him up in the sheet and put him over by the door. Instead, what happens is there's a fight. Maurice bleeds out. Larry now goes in the bathroom, and that's when they say, okay, well, we got to kill Larry, so we're going to get sheets and try to, because we don't want to have a complete bloodbath. We got the blood we got now that's going to have to get cleaned up. So we'll bring Larry out, and we'll kill him on the sheet, roll him up in the sheet, and it'll be easier when we dispose of him. And that's exactly what happened here. And he lets the truth out in that moment right there. I'm gonna play it back, and I want you to hear it for yourself when he lets the truth out. So let's just go back a few minutes here. We'll go back, I think, 30 seconds.
And put a hat over his head.
And where did he do this?
Living.
And what happened after that?
He started hitting him in the chest at first.
With an item, with his fist? How was he hitting him?
We hit him in the chest with a fist first, hit him like 3-4 times. And then Tyrone passed him the knife. And he started stabbing him.
So Tyrion handed him the knife. Was he making a noise?
He couldn't. He had the sock in his mouth.
Was he trying to make noise?
Yeah.
How many times did Brice Rhodes stab him?
So no.
Where did he stab him?
The torso, out up here.
Was he standing up or was he on his knees?
He was on his knees.
And he stabbed him in the chest?
Chest, stomach, around there in the general area.
In the what area?
In his chest, in his stomach, on his torso.
Did he stab him other places?
No.
How long did this go on for?
Until he stopped breathing.
Do you have any idea the time?
I don't know.
Was there a lot of blood?
Yeah.
Where was the blood going?
In the carpet and the sheets.
Were the sheets set out to catch the blood?
Yeah. Sheets was really there to move him.
Who got the sheets?
Shit. Price.
And where did he put them?
Shit, like we had dragged Maurice by the door. And then bring Larry out.
Now these guys are your best friends, right?
Yeah.
What do you?
I want you to understand what he just said. He says the sheets were to move them, right? What he's basically saying is the sheets didn't come into effect until Maurice was dead. So this was not a situation where they're putting Maurice and Larry in the bathroom and figuring all this out. Now, they had it all figured out for Larry. This is a situation where Maurice is already dead on the floor, and they got to figure out how to move the body. So they put Larry in the bathroom, in my opinion. Larry's in the bathroom. They're trying to figure out what to do with Larry, but they know they got to move Maurice. They get the sheets. They wrap his body in, put him by the door, lay down new sheets, and decide they got to kill Larry. And he just told that truth right there inside his convoluted story. And then what he's telling you, recounting, is Larry's death, and he's just recounting it another time and putting Maurice in there because the way Maurice dies is different. It's not how they say.
What's running through your mind?
Make sure I get out.
What's that?
I gotta make sure I get out. Try to save somebody else. Make sure I'm safe.
And what would have stopped you from getting out?
Probably if I ain't go along with it,
What would have happened?
probably been with him. Probably same situation, same fate.
All right. So they bring Larry out of the bathroom. Does he have?
All right. Again, I want you to listen here to how he describes Larry's death, because he describes Larry's death twice. He describes it when he's talking about Maurice's death, and he describes it again here. Listen to the similarities, because all he did was describe the way they killed Larry. And everything that happens when they kill Larry, the stabbings, you stab him, all of that is done to Larry. And that's how they all get involved when they make the decision. We got to kill Larry because Larry's going to tell what happened to Maurice. And then, of course, they're going to tell what happened in the street. And they know they got to get rid of Larry. Because they know Larry now, no way will he walk around believing or allowing the death of his brother to happen and not be talked about.
When does he get the sock?
He already been like, he had the belt, he had a hat, he got the sock. He had the sock when it was his turn.
Okay, when you say he had the belt, what do you mean?
His hands was already tied behind his back. He had a hat over his eyes, so he couldn't see.
And he had a sock in his mouth?
So he got the sock when it was his turn.
Was he making noises?
That's it. He started making noises when he started getting stabbed.
Was he on his knees?
Yeah.
Did he know what had happened to his brother?
No.
Was there blood in the spot that he was at?
Yeah.
Did he respond to that?
Yeah, he started like trying to kick everything off, get his hands untied, get his hands free and stuff.
Was his brother making any noise at that point?
My brother already did.
So how many times did he get stabbed?
I don't know. A lot.
Who was stabbing him?
He stabbed him till he was dead.
Brice did?
Yeah. Then we passed the knife around.
Who did he pass the knife to?
He passed it to me.
Why'd he pass you the knife? They're both dead, right?
Yeah, both dead, but he said, so we all gonna be in it. It's on all of us now.
So if you listen to all the description, they put a hat over his head, tied up with a belt, on his knees. He just told that exact same story. How many belts they got? How many hats they got? Right? They have all the same things. Whose belt did they use? Because they did the same thing to Maurice. They tied him up with a belt. No, they didn't. They did not do that. Maurice died at the hands of Jacory. Now, this is why I said they have Brice Rhodes. They got this right, because this second, when Larry dies, I don't know who took the lead here. I would imagine Jacory shook up, because I don't think Jacory's a real killer. He's a guy who killed people inadvertently twice. But the cold-blooded guy is like Brice, when he says, this is what we got to do. If you want to walk out of here alive today and you want to walk out, you got to participate. This part, I believe, is true. Every single one of them. And I would say Brice, being the 25-year-old, like, this is how it's going to go down, guys. We're going to pull him out the bathroom. We'll take care of this. And then we're going to go dispose of the bodies. Everybody's going to be involved. Everybody's got to stab the body. And he says, at one point, he goes and says he stabbed both of them. He probably did. I don't know. That might have been required. But I think Larry was the one that everybody had to get involved in. We're all doing this. So now we've killed Larry as a group. So we're all involved. Jacory is protected now, because if you talk about killing Maurice and you talk about killing the other guy, now Larry's going to come out. Now they're all supposedly bound by this secret. They're going to go dispose of the bodies, clean up the apartment, and then keep this secret forever. And they didn't keep it for 3 days. But this is why I believe these guys, look, obviously, now Anwan, I don't have as big a problem with Anwan necessarily getting what he got, because he is truly a kid here that got dragged into this because he's there with his cousin. Jacory, though, is the one that I think is more culpable in all of this because he caused the first 2 deaths. Now, Brice deciding, hey, the way we resolve these deaths is by murdering Larry and cold-bloodedly murdering Larry. The question is, did he do this or did Jacory decide to do this? Because remember, Anwan says, I'm the only one that didn't want to go forward killing Larry. I think that's probably true. I think he probably was like, kill Larry? What? No, come on, keep him alive. He won't tell. And I think everybody else there, the older guys, Jacory, Brice, Q, whoever the other people were, are all like, nah. Larry's already talking. Maurice is already talking about the first incident. There's no way Larry's flipping out. And I'm sure this was a very traumatic situation. So they pull Larry out and they kill him. And they stab him in the torso. And everybody takes a turn stabbing him. It's a horrible, brutal situation. Let's listen to the rest of the direct examination. I'm not going to get into the cross, but I want to walk you through this, and then we'll put Jacory's testimony up, and you can see really what I want to look at on the Jacory's part is how he really didn't want to testify. And you can see how troubled he is. And he doesn't want to talk about this because he's not talking about this as somebody, in my opinion, who witnessed somebody doing something. He's talking about because he doesn't want to remember what he did. He doesn't want to get into it. And it's not until he goes behind closed doors with his attorney who goes over everything he's supposed to say, and then he comes out on script and he basically just tells the story exactly the way he's supposed to.
So you would participate?
Yeah.
So what did you have to do with the knife?
I stabbed him.
Who'd you stab?
Larry.
How many times did you stab Larry?
Like 3.
What'd you do with the knife?
So pass it back to him.
What'd he do with the knife?
Pass it to somebody else.
Who was the next person up?
I don't remember.
Where was Jacory?
Corey's right there with him. Corey's in there.
Was Jacory handed the knife?
Yeah.
Before or after they were both dead?
After.
Look how, when he asked about Jacory, look how he looked down. Look at him right now. He's looking down. When you brought up Jacory, you could tell there is a secret there with him. He knows who caused all this. And he knows he caused all this. And he's looking at it. He's like, was Jacory right there with him? He's right there with him. Not only is he right there with him, he's the guy that caused the first one, the second one. He's got all this on him, but that's his family. So in his opinion, he's got to protect his family. And I understand that to a degree. And as far as how he processes this as a young man, but obviously, if this thing goes so different, if they report the first issue, right? But they're never going to do that because obviously they have a valid distrust of the police, given the reputation of that police force. But let's finish watching here.
You know what he did with the knife?
He stabbed him a few times.
Who did he stab?
Larry.
All right. What's the next thing that happens?
We put him in totes. You feel me? Took him and like with him, Rice, Tyron, and somebody else. They were supposed to take him to like a abandoned house and burn the bundle.
The 3 older guys were?
Yeah. They're supposed to take it to a abandoned house and burn it.
And when you say totes, what most people know, but what's a tote?
The little thing that you put clothes in.
Like a suitcase?
No, not no suitcase. It's like a like little things that you put the like Christmas stuff in.
Like a bin?
Yeah, bin.
So the bodies got put in a bin. The plan is the 3 of them are going to go get rid of the bodies. Do you help carry the bin? How did the bins get down?
We all helped take it to the car.
And which car was it you took them to?
To Sky Blue Mazda.
And did you help load the bins into the car?
Yep.
Did you see the inside of the car?
Yep.
Do you remember? Was it a normal looking car?
That was a regular car.
So the three of them are going to go do this. What are you and your cousin supposed to do?
Stay back, clean blood up. Straight blood up the car.
And how was it decided that that's what the two of you were going to do?
We went to room in the car.
Did someone tell you to do that?
Yeah.
So they left. You're up in his living room. Did you think about leaving?
No.
Why?
Because I knew he was going to drop us off eventually.
So what was the process for cleaning up?
So we had some bleach. We just scrubbed the floor.
What were you scrubbing the floor with?
Rags.
How long did it take you to do this?
We went from that night to like next morning. I didn't go to sleep.
So you worked through the night cleaning it up. And how long after did Bryce come back to the house?
Yeah.
How long was he gone for?
He's gone for a while.
Say anything about what had happened? Did he help you clean up?
Yeah.
Once you all had the house cleaned up, what's the next thing that happens? What do you do with the stuff?
We took it to various dumpsters.
Okay, so you hopped in a car. Which car did you hop in?
In the blue one.
And where'd you put the stuff?
Especially when we put stuff
So the stuff you cleaned up, you put it in. How'd you carry it out of the apartment?
in the bag.
Okay. And then the bags, you put them in the car,
In the trunk.
in the trunk area. And one of you all was in the front seat. Where were you?
Front.
Okay. And then did somebody sit in the back seat?
The cord.
So where'd you go in the car? And who's driving the car?
Brice driving the car.
All right. And where'd you go to?
We went to like different dumpsters. Set dumpsters on fire.
Why different dumpsters?
Just spread evidence.
So it seemed like spreading the evidence was a good idea at the time.
I was in the car.
So did you end up? So stuff gets dropped off, gets burnt. How was the stuff set on fire?
We put some gas in the dumpster. Went on fire.
And then drove off. Where'd you go that night?
On the Park Hill.
And what was going on in Park Hill? Where'd you go?
Shopping train.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, so I was over. So I was trying to trade shoes.
Okay. What were you wearing the same clothes that you had on earlier in the day?
Yeah.
And so you're changing out of those clothes? Who's giving you clothes?
All right, so we're going to move on now to Jacory's testimony here, and we're going to watch the beginning. And you're going to see. I want you to watch how he acts and his body language as he comes into court to testify.
Mr. Taylor, you can come right up here to the witness stand. Would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear to tell the truth and the whole truth? Thank you. Have a seat. Could you introduce yourself to the jury? And sir, if you lean closer to the microphone and speak louder, we need to be able to hear you.
Jacory Taylor.
Mr. Taylor, how are you connected to this case? You need to answer the question. Sir, you need to answer the question. Sir, did you know Larry and Maurice?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know them?
These are my friends.
Were your friends? Did you know or do you know Anwan Carter? And I know that you're nodding, but we have to be able to hear you. So if you could say yes or no as appropriate. Did you know Anwan?
Yes, ma'am.
How did you know him?
He's my cousin.
He's your cousin?
Yes, ma'am.
Is that on your mom's side or dad's side?
Mom's side.
Did you know Brice Rhodes? You must answer the question. You want to approach? Come on up here, sir. We're going to take a short break. Need about 10 minutes. If y'all can come back at 1:30, please.
All right, so he's back on the stand. They took a little break, talk with him. Now just watch him. I want you to just watch his body language because that's what's important here is watching how he is acting right now. Look at him. He's a man with a lot on his mind. He does not want to go through this. He does not want to go back, and he doesn't want to lay this on Brice because he knows he's responsible for where this came to. He knows Brice was trying to help him, get him out of trouble, clean up his issues, and he knows what he's about to have to do, and he's like, I don't want to do it. And then, of course, they bring the public defender down, and they bring a lawyer down to talk to him and remind him, if you don't do this, you're going to prison for the rest of your life. Let's watch. And there's no sound right now because they're talking all off record. They did this periodically throughout the case. But just watch his body language. You know, watch his body language. Here he comes back
How often
on.
would you hang out with him?
I'm with Amon more than anybody, and Maurice Larry more than anybody. So I can't say how many times we hung together, how often, but it was often. But more than I hung with them two and Amon.
I'm so sorry, but I could not hear all of that. If you could lean closer and.
We hung with them sometimes, but I mean it was mostly me, Maurice and Larry and Amon. It wasn't.
So it was mostly you four, sometimes him.
Yeah.
How old was he, if you recall?
Who?
Mr. Rhodes.
No,
Was he older than you?
older than us.
Did you all ever? Well, anytime you hung out with him, were they there? Your friends there too, or did you ever hang out with him? Just you and him.
It was mostly just me, him, and Maurice and Larry and Butter. Amon.
Okay, and I believe you just said Buddha. What is
It's Amon.
that's Amon's nickname?
Yeah.
All right.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but let me ask the attorneys to come up. Mr. Faccio, would you mind to come up too?
So the judge is now once again talking with him because he's refusing to answer the questions. So let me get this up here now. Let's get to another section here. Back here.
I ain't got nothing to say.
Okay, Mr. Taylor, I want to turn to the May 4th.
I ain't got nothing to say.
He don't want to talk about it.
Leading up to May 4th of 2016.
He doesn't want to talk about it. I mean, I want you to watch his body language in this entire moment because this is when he's sitting here and he's struggling with this because in my opinion, he knows the May 4th incident was him. He knows the first incident that starts out everything that happens when Maurice and Larry die starts with him. He doesn't want to talk about this. He doesn't want to have to talk and lay this on another person that he knows wasn't responsible for some of the things he's going to say. He's responsible for part of it, enough that he should, and could get in trouble. And I think, that's the justification probably in his mind at the end of the day when he's living with this that says, hey, you know what? But the question is, should he be walking and Brice be going to jail for the rest of his life when he's going to paint Brice as the kingpin, the mastermind, when all Brice was doing was helping him out? Which, again, I understand Brice has a bad reputation when you review how he's acted the last 7 years. But how would you be feeling right now if you're sitting in jail, you try to help somebody out, you're painted as a monster, and you end up here trying to be loyal to your friends? Bad decisions, but certainly not the monstrous person who tortured somebody that it appears they're making him out to be.
Tell us what happened.
I ain't got nothing to say. I respect what y'all doing here, but I ain't got nothing to say about the incident.
Well, that's not true, right? You don't want to. Right? But you do have something to say. Can you please tell the jury about the May 4th incident? Can you tell the jury what happened the night Christopher Jones was shot on 41st Street? Sir, I know it's hard. Mr. Taylor, were you on 41st Street the night Christopher Jones was shot?
I ain't got nothing to say.
I want you to watch how this is unfolding right now.
2016, were you in a car on 41st?
Watch the emotion. This is a man who is not crying because of what happened to these people.
Understand this is a court.
It's what he did.
Just get sworn in.
He's struggling with the idea: do I tell the real story or do I tell this lie
Understand that,
on
correct?
my friend over there? I messed up my entire life
You
that night,
understand that you have
and he knows
information
that.
that the jury needs about this case, right? Do you understand that? Do you want me to ask it in smaller questions? Does that help better? Mr. Taylor, were you with those people that you have just talked about? Maurice, Larry, Anwan, and Brice Rhodes on May 4th, 2016? Answer that question. Were you with them that night? May 3rd into May 4th, 2016. So there are 3 answers you can give to that question. You could say, yes, I was with them, no, I wasn't with them, or I don't remember. What is your answer to that question? Mr. Taylor, do you remember a conversation that you had with Detective Tonelli about this?
All right, so I'm going to move on into the testimony. Essentially, what happens here is they call down the public defender, and they end up having to bring the public defender in to get him to testify or get him to agree to testify. And we're going to come here. I'm sorry, I'm having some issues with the loading here. Let's see what happens here. I think we're not far enough along.
Yes, sir.
Let's go forward here.
Sir, was any of this, was killing Christopher Jones your idea?
That was none of our idea. It was brought to us.
It was brought to you? Whose idea was it?
Brice idea.
Who shot Christopher Jones?
Brice.
Was killing Larry and Maurice your idea?
Oh, man.
Whose idea was it?
Brice.
Who began the stabbing of Maurice Gordon?
Brice.
Who began the stabbing of Larry Ordway?
Brice.
Who told you to stab Larry Ordway?
Brice.
I have no further questions.
Thank you, Ms. Jones Brown. Somebody need a break? Yeah, all right, let's take a 5-minute break. We'll be back.
So that ends up being the direct examination of this man. They basically allow him to be declared a hostile witness, and that is the detail he goes into. Now, the defense walks him through more detail. So we're going to go to the cross-examination here in this case, because that's where the meat and potatoes get into here, where he begins to be questioned by the defense attorney who opens him up a little bit. So let's listen.
In fact, you have not wanted to ever be in a courtroom talking about this, right?
No, sir.
You were hoping that you never get caught, right?
Yes, sir.
But you did, right?
Yes, sir.
want to ask you about another thing that we agree about. The gun. The gun that you admitted when the prosecutor was questioning you, the 9mm, right?
Yes, sir.
You purchased that?
Yes, sir.
You purchased that by yourself?
Yes, sir.
Where'd you buy that?
Out in the home the night that it happened.
Tell the jury where that home is.
Maurice and Larry's house.
You purchased that gun at Maurice and Larry's house.
Yes, yes, sir.
You purchased it the night of the first murder.
Sir.
Which room of the house were you in when you made that purchase?
No, I was downstairs.
I really couldn't hear that.
I was downstairs.
Was it the living room, the kitchen, a bathroom?
Say it.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. I really couldn't understand that.
Downstairs. I don't remember what room. I just know I was downstairs.
Okay. So you're saying it was downstairs, you just don't remember which room?
Mhm.
Okay. But you remember buying it. Was it with cash? Did you buy it with cash?
Yes, sir.
Do you remember how much?
Like $200-300.
Where'd you get the money?
I don't remember.
Who'd you buy it from?
A friend of mine.
Who?
A friend of mine that was there.
I understand that. I am asking you who the friend is.
He was kin to Maurice and Larry. He was kin to Maurice and Larry, and I bought the gun from him.
So you bought it from someone related to Maurice and Larry. I'm going to ask you again. I'm not trying to be a jerk here, but you really haven't answered my question. Who sold you the gun at Maurice and Larry's house?
It was a friend of theirs. I know he was there that night.
I'm not trying to be a jerk. I asked you.
It's a friend of Maurice and Larry's. I bought the gun from him. He was there that night, and I bought the gun from him.
And folks knew you were there buying that gun.
Yeah, and one did. Maurice and Larry did.
You said that.
Now, this is significant testimony. Very significant testimony, what you just heard here, because this sets the scene for why they're out driving around the night of that shooting. He goes to Maurice and Larry's house, buys this gun for $300. Now, we're supposed to believe he buys it for protection and then hands it off to Brice. Why would he hand that off to Brice? That makes no sense. That makes no sense at all. What's going on is he just bought his gun. They're driving around. They're driving around. They're, hot-shotting around. They just bought this gun. They're hanging out. And they pull up on that guy who's in the street. Now, I don't think he intends to shoot the guy. It's not like he's going out to shoot him. He's pointing the gun at him or pointing it out the window, or they're intended to go into an alleyway and shoot and see how this thing goes. They're 14, 15, 16 years old. They're stupid. They're stupid. They're not smart and intelligent. They're not thinking things rationally through. And just like was proven and has been proven in various studies about the way young men think, they don't think through consequences at that age. They're not thinking about, if I'm pointing a gun around, they're just doing it. Hey, I got this gun. It's cool. And then it fires. And it discharges. And unfortunately, when it discharges, it kills a man. And then Anwan runs over the guy. So now Anwan and Jacory are in this. And this is what you're seeing here. His story makes no sense at all from the standpoint of what I'm saying doesn't make sense is that he hands that gun off to Brice for no reason when he buys it for protection. He just bought this thing for $300. Not only that, but supposedly they're out going to do a hit that he never gets paid for. And that he never gets paid for. That makes no sense at all. The story makes no sense.
You're done, Daddy.
That it was the same day as the first murder. I'm not asking you exactly what time, but was it at nighttime?
It was at night.
So it was a few hours later that it was used in a murder.
Yes, sir.
You said to this jury today
Mhm.
that you got it for your own personal protection.
Yes, sir.
That's because telling this jury you got that gun for murder sounds pretty bad, doesn't it? Doesn't sound good, right?
Doesn't sound good, but I didn't get it for that. I didn't purchase the gun for that. I purchased it for me, my own protection.
It wasn't used for your protection, was it?
Nah, I didn't have it long. I didn't have the gun long to even use it.
That's exactly where I
My
was going.
protection.
That's exactly where I was going next. And you got rid of that gun, right?
No,
You still got it.
gave it to Brice.
That gun was disposed of that same night, right?
Correct? That's right.
Your cousin, N1, right?
Mhm.
You call him Butter?
Yes, sir.
Am I pronouncing that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. You agreed that he was in a truck.
Now, once you see how uncomfortable he gets and got, did you notice how uncomfortable he got with that questioning? And you could see he's looking around. He's like, and when they're questioning about why did you get the gun? Now, I don't know if maybe he got the gun to kill somebody else. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't think that was the case. I think that's what the defense was trying to say. But I believe he bought the gun because he thought it was something he wanted to have. It was cool. He was going to flex around and be cool.
The night of the first murder.
Yes, sir.
Pickup truck.
Yes, sir.
He was driving.
Yes, sir.
Stolen pickup truck.
Say that. It wasn't his. He was too young to drive.
I know your answer was you can say that.
Yes, it was.
You helped him steal.
No, sir.
That truck ended up getting burned, didn't it?
Yes, sir.
Where did it get burned?
I don't remember.
You got burned.
Not to my knowledge. Not that I remember. Anyway, sorry. Not that I remember. I didn't help burn no truck. Not that I remember.
Your answer to whether or not you set fire to a stolen pickup truck is not that I remember.
I don't remember burning no truck. I didn't burn no truck.
Was it burned here in Jefferson County?
Yes, sir. In Louisville.
You know the county pretty well. Where was it?
In Louisville.
Yeah.
Sure. I don't know where. I don't remember where, but I know it was in Louisville. Yes, sir. It was burnt in Louisville.
About when was it burnt?
Same day or the next day. I know it was after the Chris incident. I know it was burnt after that.
You didn't do anything wrong. Like, you were there, you were watching, but you didn't really participate. Because that's what you eventually convinced the police, right? That you were just there, but you didn't participate.
Objection.
You wanna come up?
Because that's what you eventually convinced.
Yes, sir. It was.
You were one of the people voting, right?
Nah, we didn't vote. He asked us. We said no. We didn't agree to it.
So your testimony under oath is that you said no.
Yes, sir.
What about your cousin? And
Now that's significant because Anwan testified that he was the only one that said no. Anwan was the only one that said no, and that Jacory said yes. So again, the stories aren't aligning because it's a lie. Because there was a vote, but it was after Maurice dies, and they vote on Larry. So he's trying to make himself look good because he doesn't want to, he doesn't want to say what actually happened.
He said no as well.
what about the other folks who were there?
We didn't know them, so I don't really recall them even saying anything. I don't know if they said yeah or no. I don't remember that. I don't. I know it's burnt after that.
Answer any questions about your involvement either, did you?
No, sir.
What you're saying today is that Larry and Maurice, good friends of yours,
Yes, sir.
but you're also admitting to this jury that you were involved in their murders.
Yes, sir. I was there.
A little bit more than there, right?
I was there.
Well, let's talk about some of the differences between just being there and what happened. You're telling this jury that there were a whole bunch of people there, right? More than 5.
Yes, sir.
You told this jury that Maurice actually started something with you.
Yes, sir.
Prosecutor minimized it a little bit, but I want to make sure that I understand what it is that you're saying. You're saying Maurice pulled a knife on you.
Yes, sir.
There are different knives in this world, right?
Yes, sir.
Is the knife?
Now, this is extremely, extremely important. I want you to listen to this here because this is where he gets into the altercation between himself and Maurice, because this is the genesis of the second set of the second deaths that occur, because he and Maurice get into it. Why is Maurice mad at him? Let's listen to everything he says about this altercation, and you tell me whether it makes sense.
We're talking about a knife that folds. Okay. Do you understand what I'm asking?
Yes, sir. I don't recall what kind of knife it was. I just know it was a knife. I remember it was a knife.
So as opposed to like a kitchen knife or something like that, they're different. So you're saying you can't identify, don't know what knife at all?
It wasn't no regular kitchen knife.
Okay.
It was a knife. I just know it was a knife. It wasn't no kitchen knife.
Okay, not a kitchen knife. Did you see, and I'm asking you under oath, did you see him where he got the knife? Well, out of his pocket, someplace else,
Not that I recall. I just know it was a knife there. He kept a knife with him.
So was it his knife?
Was it his knife?
Yes.
Yes, it was his knife.
So
No, you talking about Maurice's knife?
I am.
No, it wasn't his knife. It wasn't his knife. I'm sorry
Okay.
about that. I recall.
All right.
He picked up a knife that Brice had, that Brice carried with him to attack me with it, to charge at me with it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that's the knife, and if I'm being confusing, you tell me, all right? That knife that got pulled on you,
Yes, sir.
can you tell us about that knife? What did it look like? How big was it? Stuff like that.
Like I said, I don't remember. I just know it wasn't no kitchen knife.
Okay. I think you just told me, but I'm not 100% sure I understood it. So where did he get it? Was it on a table?
I don't recall where he picked it up from. I just know he picked it up and charged at me with the knife.
Okay.
I don't remember where he got it from. I just know, yeah.
He charged at you with it.
Yes, sir.
Can you show us with your hand how he was holding it?
I just remember he was like this, not like running with it, just like this, like holding it, like trying to come, trying to come towards me. Yes, sir.
Okay. What was he doing with that hand that was holding the knife?
I don't remember. I just remember him coming toward me with the knife. I don't remember what the whole.
Okay.
How he looked.
Was he running? Was he slow walking?
He wasn't running. He wasn't walking. He was just trying to come towards me. People was pulling him back to not come towards me.
So other folks were holding him back.
Yeah, to not come towards me, to stop him.
All right. Was he also talking while he was doing that?
I don't know. He was just mad.
Okay. But he was mad. You could tell he was mad.
Yes, sir.
you said, I'm trying to get this right, a minute ago, you lunged back. So you went back.
I stepped back.
Yep. Okay. You did that because you didn't want to get stabbed.
Correct. Yes, sir.
And the only reason you didn't get stabbed is because other people grabbed him, right?
He wasn't gonna stab me.
Well, you lunged back because you were concerned he might, right?
Yeah, I lunged back, but he wasn't gonna stab me.
Well, he didn't stab you on this particular. He didn't, right? In part because people grabbed
Me
him
back.
up,
Yes,
right?
sir. Mm-hmm.
Now, all this stuff we're talking about right now, everything we just talked about with Maurice, the knife, and all that. When the police first questioned you, you didn't say any of that, right?
I mean, I said something, but I didn't say about the situation. I didn't say about the murders.
And the reason why he didn't say anything about it is because he knew that the part that we're talking about, right, that you just heard, he's describing the altercation. Now, the thing the defense attorney didn't ask, maybe he didn't want to know, is why were you arguing with Maurice? And what ends up happening is they get into an altercation. Now, what you have to believe here is that this guy here is saying, hey, I'm of the mentality that I needed Brice to bail me out, that I needed somebody else to take care of this problem for me. Do you not believe that if somebody comes at a young man, they're 14, 15, 16, of the mentality of being in the street, and they are in the street where they get upset with each other, and they're not going to be allowing someone to come at them with a knife, that he's not going to take care of business, that there's not going to be an altercation that he feels he can take care of? That makes no sense whatsoever. That makes no sense whatsoever. So let's continue watching.
Well, what you actually said was, I don't know what you're talking about. I wasn't there. Does
Yes,
that ring a bell?
that's what I said.
Okay. So all these things you're saying here to this jury, the first time you were asked about them, you said, I don't know. I can't help you. I wasn't there.
Yes.
You said, why are you holding me? I didn't do nothing. Right?
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you said that over and over and over.
Mm-hmm.
That wasn't true. Right?
First statement. Of me saying, of me denying.
All those things, right? Those were all lies. Right?
That wasn't true. The first statement. It wasn't true.
But you swore it was true. You said it's true. It's true. Let me go. I didn't do anything. Right?
Yes, sir.
But you were lying.
Yes, sir.
Now, your testimony to this jury makes it sound like you didn't do anything wrong. Like you were there, you were watching, but you didn't really participate. Because that's what you eventually convinced the police, right? That you were just there, but you didn't participate.
Objection.
You wanna come up?
This is the sort of thing I'm at. This is the sort of thing I'm asking you about. You were talking about people being violated, right? That's the term you used.
Yes, sir.
I think you're using that term kind of to mean punished. Is that right?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Before that happened, was there a vote?
Yes, sir. It was. And I remember. It was.
When you just testified to this jury, when the prosecutor was asking you What happened? That didn't come up.
No, sir, it didn't.
But now you're telling this jury that in fact there was a vote.
Yes, sir, it was.
And you were one of the people voting, right?
Nah, we didn't vote. He asked us. We said no. We didn't agree to it.
So your testimony under oath is that you said no.
Yes, sir.
What about your cousin? And
Huh? He said no as well.
What about the other folks who were there?
And once again, very significant here because Anwan says he was the only one that said no, and Jacory said yes. Yet Jacory's telling the jury, no, I said no. So what's the story here? Who's telling the truth? Keep listening.
We didn't know them, so I don't really recall them even saying anything. I don't know if they said yeah or no. I don't remember that. I don't.
You don't. Your testimony is that you don't remember.
They could agree with it. They could not. I don't know. I don't know. I don't remember.
This is a vote that, according to you now, resulted in 2 deaths,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yes, sir.
And you're telling us you don't remember the details?
7 years ago, man. I don't remember who actually said, let's do it, let's not do it. I don't know. It was 7 years ago.
But you want this jury to believe that you, in this vote, voted no.
Yeah. We said no.
It wasn't long after that before you were holding a knife, right?
I was past the knife.
You were holding a knife.
Yeah, I was past the knife. Yeah.
And you want it to be passed because you think that sounds better.
No, sir.
Because I'm not asking you how it ended up in your hand. I'm asking you, was the knife in your hand?
Yes, sir. The knife was in my hand.
Was it the same knife that you'd been threatened with?
Been threatened with?
Yes. By Maurice minutes earlier. It was the same knife that ended up in your hand.
Yes, sir. It was the same knife.
You took that same knife, according to your testimony, and you stuck that knife, you stabbed with that knife into Maurice. Yes?
No. No.
You told us under oath minutes ago that you did.
Larry. He made me stab Larry, not Maurice.
So your testimony is that you did not stab both?
No, sir, I didn't.
So that knife that you've been threatened with, you only stabbed one of your friends with?
Yes, sir.
3 times?
I remember.
So this is important because they come back to the fact, and Anwan says it was Larry. He stabbed. He says it's Larry that everybody's stabbing. Why is that important? Because Larry is the one that Larry's the one here who becomes the true premeditated murder, who isn't murdered as part of a fight or an accident. He's the one they make the constant that makes the actual decision that they're going to murder him. And that is important. That is very, very important because Larry is the one that they continuously come back to each time. And it's consistent in both of them. But it's funny because he did slip and say Maurice, and I caught that the first time I was watching this. Then he comes back and clarifies, no, it's Larry, because Larry is the one that they vote on. Larry is the one that's in the bathroom. Larry is the one that they all say, all right, he's the one we're all going to be taking accountability for. And they murder him, and each of them stab him. I'm sure he did. He had to come over and stab Larry. All of them did. And then they take it and dispose of the bodies because it's more in the altercation between him and Maurice. Maurice ends up dying, in my opinion, to which Larry is the one they take a vote on, to which they then murder Larry, to which they then dispose of and get rid of the bodies. And Brice and the 2 older guys take command of that. And Brice says, all right, you guys stay here at the house, start cleaning up the carpet. Why is he cleaning the blood off the floor? because he's the one that got the blood on the floor. Because Larry was killed on a sheet. He got Maurice's blood on the floor. That's why Brice is telling him. That's why they said, well, you were left behind. Why didn't you leave? Why didn't they leave? Why didn't he and Anwan leave? Why are they sitting there at a house cleaning blood off the floor that allegedly wasn't their responsibility? That's because of the fact that he put it there. Let's get back and finish watching the last bit of his testimony.
Once or twice, as I told her.
These details matter to you, right?
Yes, sir.
They're important, right?
Yes, sir.
And you want to make sure that the jury in this court don't know what really happened to Maurice and Larry. Isn't that true?
No, that's not true.
Well, when you spoke to the police, you felt very strongly you did not want them to know what happened, right?
Yes, sir.
As you told us earlier today, because you didn't want to get caught. It was the first thing I asked you. And you talked, I know you may have talked with multiple people. One of those people you talked to is in the courtroom, right?
Yes, sir.
Can you point at the officer in the courtroom who spoke to you? Do you know his name?
Detective Tonelli?
That is correct. Do you remember if Detective Tonelli was there every time that police were speaking to you?
Yes, sir.
He was.
Yes, sir.
Was he running the room?
I don't remember. I just know he was there. He was present.
Okay. He talked to you a lot, right? These weren't short conversations, right? And that's not a trick question. I mean, it's not like you didn't talk to each other for 5 minutes or something. You talked to each other for hours, right? Okay. One of these meetings is 126 pages, just one of them.
All right, so that's where I'm going to end his testimony. So I showed both of these guys because what you should have taken from the testimony here, if you're watching, I want you to focus on the fact that the story, everything runs through Ja'Cory's hands. And then Anwan is there because of Ja'Cory, but Anwan is tied to this thing because he ran over that body. So in the first incident, he's responsible for this. But Ja'Cory buys the gun. They decide to go out, ride around. Why are they riding around? Because he just bought a gun. Let's go ride around. Let's go figure something out. Let's go show it off. They're hot rodding it. The gun accidentally discharges. Now, you might say, well, couldn't he have handed it to Brice? And Brice, he could have. But here's the deal. Why is Maurice coming after Ja'Cory? And the reason why is because Ja'Cory is the one that fired that weapon. Anwan is saying it was Brice. I saw his hand out. Well, he saw his hand out, but is he going to say it's Ja'Cory? No, because he already spoke to Detective Tonelli, which that was where they were going there, was talking about the extensive time these guys spent with Tonelli, who helped them craft a story that essentially got them all out of this. Ended up each only doing about 6 years in prison, and it was mostly juvenile justice is where they spent their time. So, again, it starts and ends with them. The gun's in his hand, and then he allegedly hands it to Brice. The knife is in Maurice's hand, and it's allegedly taken out of Maurice's hand. Brice takes control of it and does the killing. Yet and supposedly in both cases, he's just a bystander. In both cases, in one case, he's supposedly, hey, he's not strong enough to defend himself in that situation. We're supposed to believe that. And then finally, when the real premeditated murder occurs, that was of Larry, when they vote, because Brice, I believe, was guilty of that. I believe 100% Brice thought that up and said, you know what? He took control, and the two older ones, and they realized they're all involved in this. They're all present. and they want to help them out. At this point, it's unfortunate that all this happened, but they have no choice in the matter. So they go and they vote on it. What do you want to do about this? We could go call 911 right now and get Maurice help, or kill Larry. But if we do that, this other thing's going to happen. And that's why Jacory says, well, we can't be having that. And he votes for the killing. Anwan is the only one that's sitting there saying, no, let's call 911 and save my friends, because he's the youngest. And he's also thinking, he doesn't want this to happen. Jacory is voting against it. You heard Anwan talk about that. And then they go forward with everything else. They clean up the house. Him and Anwan clean up the house. Brice goes and does the horrific things he has to do to get rid of the bodies. And then, unfortunately, they don't get rid of the phones. They do some stupid stuff. They keep the phones. They're kids. They get caught. And eventually, Brice, being a little bit street smart, keeps his mouth shut and doesn't give in to the police, while Jacory and Anwan, being young, scared kids, they start to realize, under Tonelli's influence, we don't want to hang you guys for the rest of your life. You help us go after Brice, who was a known guy, a guy that has had known criminal problems and had known issues with the police, I believe, from what I've gathered, prior to all of this. They were more than willing to put this on him and said, you put that on Brice, we get him off the street, and onward we go. So, verdict here, from a justice perspective, do I believe justice was fulfilled here? I believe it was, because ultimately Brice was guilty of a part of it. Do I believe these two young men should have been gotten off as easy? Technically no, but they were young kids, and I am one to believe that the mistakes they made, although it resulted in the loss of life of three individuals, I hope one of them has not made great decisions. One of them, as you saw, was testifying in a jail jumpsuit because he's currently serving prison time for burglaries. Hopefully he gets out on that and makes good. I hope this young man who's tormented makes good on his life. He needs some help, because he's very tormented with everything that happened. And if the things happen the way I think they did, he's carrying around a lot of weight on his shoulders. Unfortunately, it may not end up well for him as he tries to deal with that, as he tries to make sense of that, as he tries to deal with all the consequences of that. But ultimately, Brice should have been found guilty. It would have been found guilty, in my opinion, of the Larry murder. The disposal, tampering of corpses, absolutely. The shooting and the other one, he was present. The shooting, definitely not. But he covered it up, so they could have got him for any steps he took helping the group get rid of the truck, get rid of the gun. So, yeah, there's plenty to go around here. The question is, should he go away for life? I don't know that he should. I don't know that he's as evil of a guy. I know he did other things that maybe it makes him evil. But in this case, he was trying to help some friends, Should he go away for forever? Probably, because of what he chose to do to Larry. But for the reasons he chose to do it to Larry, could he, in this case, have maybe made a deal? Maybe he could have at some point. But I think the jury's going to throw the book at him. He can't get the death penalty because of the mental health issues. I think that's something they should explore. To me, all of these young men need help. They all need help. And we need a better system to help individuals like this. Because if we just put them and warehouse them in a prison and put them back out on the street, it's inevitable where it goes. But this is a sad, sad case where individuals lost their life for senseless things. And also, we've got 3 other individuals right now, 2 of which have the potential to make something in their life. My opinion always is, you've got to make something. The individuals that commit a crime, especially if they take a life, they have an obligation then to live their life better or make something of meaning happen in light of the victims that they had, if they're going to be out, if they're going to get another chance to walk the streets. So, and the justice system, has an obligation to assist in doing that in memory of the victim. And if something good can come out of that, even though you can never get the person back, but if something good comes in their memory or comes as a result, they live in memoriam of that person. They act in memoriam, and they get their life together in memoriam of the life that was taken because of their actions. Anyways, sentencing will go on this afternoon. We will cover it. You're going to see coverage. I will not be live covering it, but I'm going to cover it. We're going to cover the outcome of that sentencing. We're going to be watching as justice continues, because Brice Rhodes' justice process is still continuing, because in this case, it's going to go for sentencing, and then it's going to go on for appeals, which I'm sure he will want to pursue, and it will continue on until the convictions are affirmed and he's serving his sentence. And until that sentence is served, whatever it is, the process of justice continues on. Remember, justice is a process. It is not an outcome. But in this case so far, I think we had a fair trial. We had a good hearing. And, you know, I don't know that this set of facts that I'm bringing to you of what happened here would have made a difference in the outcome. It may have gotten him acquitted on 2 charges, but he still would be sitting in a position before this jury where he would be facing severe, severe consequences. Anyways, guys, hit that subscribe button if you've enjoyed this. I've got lots of content on this channel of various different cases happening. We're going to continue to cover justice as it unfolds across the nation. Hit that subscribe button. Leave me a comment on what you think on this case. What do you think happened? If you covered this case, I encourage you to go back, check out the coverage that Law and Crime put together on this case. It's great. They have everything that occurred in the courtroom. You can go back and watch it. Go back, watch it, share it with me. Share with me your thoughts. We have yesterday's coverage of the closing arguments. Go back and watch those, and come back and let me know. I'm curious. That's also what I like to do, is see comments, read comments, see perspective, see if you see what I see, or maybe you see something different. All opinions are welcome. Anyways, guys, in the meantime, until we talk again, until I see you again, until we're live again, let justice prevail. And remember, justice is best when we're watching. Justice works best when we're watching. So come along with me and let's watch justice unfold. Talk to y'all soon.